Welcome to the SMU Business Podcast, where we take a look at the most interesting business scandals from across the globe. We are your hosts. I'm Keegan.
I'm Zoe.
And I'm Melanie.
And today we will be taking a deep dive into the dramatic rise and fall of Luckin Coffee, a story that left the business world shocked. Now grab your favorite coffee, sit back, and let's get started.
Let's start with a little background before we get into the case. Citizens of China sure do love their coffee. In fact, the country is now one of the fastest growing markets for coffee across the globe. Melanie, could you give us some background on this growing industry?
Coffee consumption in China increased significantly by nearly 500% between 2006 and 2018. According to Peo Chen-Li, an associate professor of accounting at Caden University, in a journal article published in 2021, China's coffee consumption in 2019 to 2020 would be 195,000 tons, an increase of 4.8% year on year, much higher than the global market's 2% growth rate.
From what was explained, it is obvious that China's coffee market is growing significantly. How does this compare with other countries' coffee consumption?
According to the statistics, the global coffee consumption market was worth around $1.65 trillion. The United States still was the global leader with an annual consumption of $411.9 billion. In 2019, the coffee industry in China was estimated to be worth $100 billion in the official currency of China. This is roughly $13.8 billion US dollars. Instant coffee accounts for 72%, freshly ground coffee for 18%, and ready-to-drink coffee for 10%. Later, consumer preferences started to shift and the demand for freshly ground coffee was growing. They are now seeing value in the brand and style of the coffee, therefore making people want to enjoy coffee in cafes. In 2018, the per capita coffee consumption in China was relatively low, only about 1.67% of the United States and 2.39% of Japan. Later in 2019, China's per capita consumption was 7.2 cups, which was compared to 3.2 cups in 2013. This is a 125% increase in only 6 years.
Luckin Coffee is a local brand for China. What do the standings of coffee competitors in China look like?
In 2018, the top 3 brands of freshly ground coffee in China's coffee market were all international companies, Starbucks being number 1 as they made an early entrance into China's coffee market and have a strong brand influence. Local brands including Luckin Coffee and Leon Coffee ranked 4th and 5th respectively.
Now that we know about China's coffee consumption and the competition, what do we know about Luckin Coffee and how did it start?
Jenny Quan founded Luckin in Beijing in October of 2017 with a goal to revolutionize the coffee industry in China. Their mission was to become a world-class coffee brand that is part of everyday life.
In order to be part of a customer's everyday life, how did the company want to convince their customers to keep coming back?
They wanted to make high-quality coffee that is affordable and convenient to customers. There was a 9-store trial period that went very well, leading to the company's expansion in 2018. According to Wharton, University of Pennsylvania, during this time, about 5.2 stores opened per day. By 2019, Luckin was one of China's most popular coffee brands.
That is a lot of stores for a coffee shop. What were the company's goals in terms of the number of stores being opened?
The vision was to open 10,000 stores by 2021 and overtake Starbucks as the leading coffee chain in China. In the beginning, Luckin had a great rapid stock market listing, but it takes a turn when it starts costing investors quite a bit of money. Before the fraud case, Luckin Coffee was known for its aggressive expansion business strategy, including the use of technology that attracted many investors. The technology consisted of an app ordering system, which Melanie will talk about next. While this aggressive expansion seemed like a great opportunity and felt as if it was all going in the right direction, we are going to be able to understand how much this cost the company and the problems they ran into.
Luckin aimed to create itself to be a more affordable and convenient coffee experience than its competitors. Luckin takes pride in high quality, high affordability, and high convenience of coffee. The company conducted transactions in a unique way compared to its competitors. Melanie will explain how exactly Luckin did business, and this is particularly an important aspect affecting how the upcoming fraud was conducted.
Luckin operated primarily through its mobile app. Founder and CEO Jenny Quan, in a journal written by Peo Chen-Li, stated, "We are just not takeaways nor dine-in. but to meet the integration needs of users in the mobile internet era. There were two ways that customers could buy goods. One way through a digital platform, which was operated by a third-party business. The second way was using coupons through the app. The revenue from the sale of coupons was based on the number of redemptions instead of the number of coupons sold. Even before learning more about the fraud, this aspect alone seems to be just asking for fraud to occur. Luckin stores included pickups, which were the majority of business activity for all Luckin coffee stores. Customers would place almost all orders in the app in advance, which was cost-effective for Luckin. If customers ordered on the app, Luckin gave out large discounts and even free drinks. With almost all customers placing orders on the app, this allowed the stores to gather raw consumption data to meet just-in-time inventory, which was a huge advantage for them. Employee costs were also quite low because of the automatic coffee machines.
Luckin Coffee truly had everything going in its favor and experienced rapid growth in a short period of time. So how does this all unfold? Let's break it down. The news of the fraud was revealed by Muddy Waters Research after receiving an anonymous report with corroborating evidence. According to Muddy Waters, the number of items per store daily was inflated by at least 69% in the third quarter of 2019 and 88% in the fourth quarter of 2019. This evidence was supported by over 10,000 hours of store traffic video. It was believed that the fraud started right after Luckin's IPO.
Did any of this raise red flags with Luckin's external auditors?
Following the report, Luckin's external auditor, Ernst & Young, made a report to the company's audit committee indicating management was responsible for the misstated financials. Ernst & Young denied any responsibility and stated it raised flags in 2019 when they noticed anomalies. However, Ernst & Young previously wrote letters to a number of financial institutions saying they had no problem with Luckin's financials in the first half of 2019. This all prompted Luckin's board to conduct an internal investigation into the allegations. On April 2, 2020, Luckin admitted to fabricating earnings worth $310 million. Those who were involved were suspended, with the roles being filled by other managers who were uninvolved in the fraud.
Was there any sort of legislation that was created in response to this case?
Due to the concerns over lack of transparency and financial oversight, this led to the Holding Foreign Companies Accountable Act. The purpose of this legislation was to increase transparency in foreign firms, specifically Chinese firms, by having them follow auditing standards similar to those for U.S. companies. Through this, the United States could hold foreign companies accountable and protect U.S. investors. This law has been met with resistance by the Chinese government, which was then rebutted with threats of delisting its country's firms from U.S. exchanges.
Now that we know what happened and the choices the company made, there had to be some factors that led to this. What factors led to the downfall of Luckin Coffee?
First, they had an unprofitable business model with high expectations of sales numbers. The app-based business was convenient for customers but was not profitable for the company. They provided many discounts and coupons for customers, but they were not bringing in the revenue they needed to show growth. Their sales and business were actually growing, but their profits were not where they should be. This gave a lot of pressure to the company and may have contributed to the financial misstatements.
That makes sense in terms of the financial pressure they put on themselves. They definitely weren't doing as good as they wanted people to believe. Did any person have a big role in the downfall?
Yes, there was also defrauding money by the same shareholders. According to Professor Chen Li, Luckin Coffee was created by China Auto Renting Incorporation, and that was founded by Chairman Liu, who owned 34% of the company's stock. Management cashed out on 49% of stock holdings through stock pledges, which exposes investors to risk. The stock price then fell, leading to the bank raising collateral, which Luckin lacked, so the bank sold the stock. Chairman Liu and other big investors received $1.6 billion, but minority shareholders took a great loss. Cashing out through equity pledges led the Luckin shareholders to have to admit to fraud.
So it seems as if Luckin Coffee had some management issues that contributed to the fraud.
Definitely. There were core management issues at Luckin Coffee. Mr. Shao was the independent board member and had served on boards that were known for dealing with significant losses. So it is so interesting why Luckin Coffee would choose him as a board member. Their co-founder, Mr. Yang, was sentenced to 18 months imprisonment for illegal business operations. Management lacked professional coffee experience along with ethical management, which we will talk about more in a little bit.
Did anybody around the business know what was going on or have any idea?
So Luckin Coffee did actually run into short selling attacks. This is when short sellers release a negative report on the company. This definitely hurt the company and put even more pressure on them because of the increased skepticism of their business. There were 7 repetitive attacks that insinuated that something might be a little off in the company. These short selling attacks were unsuccessful until Luckin admitted to the fraud, but it did lead to Luckin's delisting and created a chain reaction. All of these factors played an important role in the downfall of Luckin Coffee. With everything that occurred, where is Luckin Coffee now? And you have to wonder, are they still in business?
In 2020, Luckin fired previous owners that were not being honest with the business practices. On February 5th of 2021, Luckin officially filed for Chapter 15 bankruptcy. In 2022, Luckin used the Chapter 15 process to restructure their business. The company filed for bankruptcy protection in the U.S., which enabled them to keep their stores open and continue operations while restructuring their business. According to Jennifer Pack in an article published by Marketplace Organization in 2023, Luckin reported in the quarter ending December 31st that they had $995 million in revenue. Starbucks reported a revenue of $735 million in the same period. This really helped regain investor confidence by showing strong sales growth. Currently, Luckin has over 16,000 stores in China, while Starbucks has just short of 7,000. Luckin strives to still be an essential part of customers' coffee experience, providing cheaper prices. They charge an average of $2 a cup versus $4 a cup at Starbucks. Luckin has also taken advantage of many different collaborations with other companies. They collaborated with the Tom and Jerry cartoon franchise to create a mascarpone cheese latte. They also collaborated with China's national liquor brand Motte to create a Motte latte and a chocolate drink.
Luckin seemed to turn their business around and is doing quite well currently. How does a company like Starbucks compare to the current financial state of Luckin?
According to a quote by Stock Analysis, which is an interactive website that provides free online stock information for investors, Luckin has a net worth of $9.17 billion. The enterprise value is $9.41 billion, while Starbucks has a net worth of $131.20 billion and a total enterprise value of $153.46 billion. While Luckin has a strong presence in China and is growing internationally, the company still has quite a bit to catch up to the industry leader Starbucks. 319.28 million shares are outstanding for Luckin. The number of shares has increased by 0.61% in 1 year. Starbucks has 1.14 million shares outstanding, although the number of shares has decreased by negative 1% in 1 year. Luckin Coffee has a current ratio of 1.60 compared to Starbucks at 0.75. Luckin's debt-to-equity ratio is 0.46, while Starbucks is negative 5.27. This indicates that Starbucks is more highly leveraged and relies more on debt than Luckin does. In the last year, Luckin had revenue of $4.72 billion and earned $401.65 million in profits. Starbucks had revenue of $36.15 billion and earned $3.52 billion in profits. Earnings per share for Luckin is $1.26, while the earnings per share for Starbucks is $3.10. Overall, Luckin is showing strong financial performance and significant improvement from where they were when the fraud was first discovered.
It is interesting and great to hear that Luckin Coffee is showing a great amount of improvement in their financial performance. The company really had to restructure their business, not only financially, but ethically too. It was evident that management before the fall struggled to be ethical.
In this case, we were able to see and understand the consequences of an unethical business and unethical management. Did this affect business in China at all?
Unfortunately, after this case, concerns were raised about the corporate governance and financial reporting in China. A need for better audit compliance standards was apparent, which Chinese regulators acted on very efficiently to improve the ethics in China's companies. Ethics in business is in transparency, and the culture of a business tells the story. While Luckin is still in the process of rebuilding their culture, there may still be some skepticism because of the transparency of the company in the past. The company has some work to rebuild trust and their reputation after this case, but they are moving in the right direction. So are the standards in China after this case.
Despite the severity of the scandal, Luckin Coffee managed to survive. As we reflect on this case, it's clear that company transparency and accountability are important in maintaining investor and customers' trust.
The fraud by Luckin set other Chinese companies back, especially in the eyes of foreign investors. Companies like Alibaba and JD.com have felt the loss of confidence by investors in entering the Chinese market, which has led to their stock prices being quite volatile. These companies, along with others, will have to prove to the rest of the world that they can be trusted.
So what are some of the big takeaways from this case?
This fraud case brought up some important reminders for people in the business world. For one, the need for regulation. Regulatory oversight ensures companies comply with business standards, and without a sufficient regulatory environment, fraud is more likely to occur. There is also a need for internal controls. Luckin's weak internal controls allowed for management to commit fraudulent activities which hurt the reputation of Luckin as well as its investors. Reputation is also a fragile thing. Luckin hasn't been able to fully recover to where they were before the fraud occurred. Though their stock price has climbed from its low, there's no way for potential investors to forget what happened in the past. There is also an importance of due diligence. Investors need to be aware of all the risks involved in an investment. It can be tempting to just look at a company such as Luckin, who is showing strong signs of growth, and push the fact it operates within a country with weak regulatory framework to the back burner. This case is a lesson to investors to educate themselves on the transparency and reporting standards for businesses, especially in foreign countries.
Well, that's all for today's episode of SMU Business Podcast. Join us next time as we uncover more stories of shocking corporate fraud and deception. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, enjoy your cup of coffee.